Alrighty, so now we attached our zipper pull to our zipper, and this is how it should look like. We have the zipper attached to the lining, right sides together. You got your zipper pull. Now we have to just close the ends of the zipper tapes. And in order to do that, we need zipper tabs. And here we have to cut 2 zipper tabs, 2.5 inch times 2.5 inch. And we will be folding it just like this. And I have done that already. It's 3/8 of an inch in on one side, 3/8 of an inch on the other side. And then the other short ends are folded into the center, both, and then we fold it in half again, and then we just end up with this piece of zipper tab. We take our zipper and just slide that zipper into that zipper tab all the way to the back, and then we clip that so it's nicely centered, so it looks like this, and then we just clip it in place, and then we will be sewing it all the way around at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we do that on both sides. So let's start, but also make sure that you take your lining out of the seam allowance, not that you end up with your lining in that zipper tab. Now, since this one here is a little open, what you can do in order for you to attach it nicely, let me just go and cut the tail off here. We're just holding on to those closely, and then we just baste the zipper together, the zipper tape together, so we can attach our zipper tab to this. So let's just baste it in place, holding it tightly together, just with a couple stitches. Let's go and close the zipper a little bit more. Alrighty. Now let's just attach it. Makes it easier to put the zipper tab in it. Alrighty, so now we should have the zipper nicely tucked in, and the zipper pull won't fly off now. So here we are. Zipper is nicely in place. Very good. Yes, let's just cut this off. Now let's continue with closing up our lining. And what we want to do is take one side of the lining and place the raw edges of the short end, right sides together, and clip them in place. And we will be sewing at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on this side, but we will not sew this boxed corner here. We leave that open yet. We will be doing that a little bit later. Also, make sure that you push your zipper tab off to the side so you're not catching it into your seam. That wouldn't be fun. Already 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and back stitch. Good. Now we do the same on the other side. However, we have to leave an opening so we can turn our back inside out. so we will be, again, let me open up the zipper. Turn it around. So we're lining the raw edges up, right sides together. Same thing down below here. And then we want to leave an opening just big enough so we can turn it inside out, perhaps 2.5, 3 inch. And it will be a good idea to just put yourself a mark here, because I tend to forget, and I be sewing, I sew it closed, and then I wonder what happened, and then I have to take the seam ripper, open it up again, and I tend to do it a lot. Good. So now we have to do our corners. What we will be doing here is we open up the zipper, which we already did, reach inside, and just open up the seam here and go that you line it up nicely with the corner so it lines up. Just use your fingers to kind of just roll it around until you have a nice edge like this, and then just clip it in place. Alrighty, so now we want to just kind of cut that seam allowance a little bit down, just about to 1/4 inch, so it just reduces the bulk down below. Same thing on the other side. Alrighty. And this is your lining. We got some nice corners here on the other side as well. Everything is nicely lined up, and you got the opening where you're going to turn out your bag. Alrighty. Okay, so now let's sew our main piece together, our exterior piece together. Let's put the lining off to the side and take our exterior piece, which is here, and we will be taking this and place it right sides together. And what we want to make sure is that our seam here where the vinyl meets the fabric, that this vinyl lines up just perfectly with the other side of the vinyl. So we want to make sure, we can always adjust down below on the box corner or the top. That's not a big issue, but your main focus will be here, that these two seams are lining up just perfectly. So which will then create this nice edge, continuous edge. So this you would like to have. And then we clip it in place. And then usually the top and the bottom will line up nice. Just make sure that this is lining up perfectly. And we will be doing the same on the other side. Just making sure that the edge here aligns perfectly. And clip that in place. And then your bottom is clipped in place. And the top. And everything lines up just beautifully. And now we will be sewing it together on both sides with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we don't need to leave an opening since this is the exterior. And again, we will be back stitching here as well. Now here at this thick seam, what I do is I do a back stitching just to enforce that seam here. So just do a little bit back stitching. Okay. You can reduce bulk by, you can just slightly cut in here to a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I don't, I leave that because it's not as bulky actually. So let's go and do our box corners, and again we reach inside. We're placing it down on your sewing table, and then we just open up those seams, and then it almost lines up itself by itself, you see. So your corners are already nicely there, just moving it around. Tug it in place. And then 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alrighty, so this is done. Now we can just double check how it looks. And this is how your corner looks. You have a nice box corner. You see it lines up nicely here. Beautiful. On the other side is beautiful as well. You see it lines up nicely here. That's what we want. Great. So let's turn, actually what we can do is, I was like thinking, we can put a little bit of an embellishment on this back. And what I like to do is, I have these rivets. It's kind of like a star rivet. I think it's, you see, fairly cute. And I was like thinking we can put like 3 rivets right down there along this line, just underneath the stitching, not necessarily through the stitching, because then you don't have, you compromise your stitching and it will probably unravel, and you don't want to do that. So we can do that just slightly down below. You can either put it off to the center, or you just, wherever you feel like it. So let me go and put those rivets on there, and you can choose whatever you would like to, but I thought it's looks kind of cute if you put something on it. And happen to have these star rivets. So let me go ahead and do that, attach them, and I will put maybe 3 on this side and 3 on the other side, and or I can even put 6 on one side. It's up to you how you would like to have it, but I think it's going to look nice on both sides. So let me just go ahead and put those rivets on, and I will meet you right back when I'm done. Okay, so now we attach the rivets, and this is how it looks like. That looks so pretty, and we have it on this side, and we have it also on the other side. Okay, so now we have to turn it right side in again, so we can attach the lining. Let's just cut the seam here down a little bit so we don't have such a big bulk in the seam allowance. And as you can see, I attached some Decovil light to reinforce the rivets here so it doesn't damage necessarily the vinyl or the faux leather or whatever you use. Just kind of gives it a little bit of a stability. So now we take our lining piece, which is right here, and we will turn this right side out, and we will be now placing that lining inside of our pouch. It's easier to have the lining in than the other way around, I found, because I don't have such a big pull on it. And here, when you do this, make sure that you pull or put the zipper inside. You push it out of the way so you're not catching it into your seam, nor is it outside. And what we will be doing now is just either open up the seam allowance and attach them together, or what you also can do is have one seam allowance go to one side and the other one to the opposite side. So one goes to the left and one goes to the right, and basically you're nesting the seams together. So, but yeah. And now you're kind of clipping everything into place. You're clipping the first seam, and then again you push that zipper down, and again one seam goes to the left, the other goes to the right, and you're just nesting it right here, and you clip it into place. Alrighty. And then we go all the way around the back, making sure that we're clipping the raw edges together. And once we have done that, and you see it kind of falls everything nicely in place. And we do the same on the other side. Also, I just tend to like the lining. I like to do it from the other side, the lining inside of the bag. Rather, a lot of bag makers I see, they are having the exterior outside and then just try to push it into the lining, and it just always is, it's more painful. I tend to think than the other way around. Alrighty, so once we have that all in place, we will be just putting it on our sewing bed, and we will start sewing. And it don't matter where you start, keeping it at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then making sure that we kind of follow the outline, the curve. And then once we go to the seam, I will show you what we do. We're going to stop once we get to the seam. So let's start, and again, always backstitch. Alrighty, so once you get to the seam here, we will just stop. I will do a couple backstitch just to reinforce the edge here, and I will pivot my back just slightly so I can align the other edge and continue at a 3/8 of an inch. And again, I'm going to make a couple stitches and back stitch just to reinforce that corner here, and then continue. So now comes the fun part. Well, first of all, let's cut down the seam allowance just so slightly, so we don't have such a big bulk here. Okay, so once we've done that, now comes the fun part. Now we have to turn it inside out. So we have to look for our opening in our lining, which is right here. Here's our opening, and then we just reach in, grab one of the corners, and then we're just starting to, oh, I forgot to open this one up here. And then we're just starting to pull that through the opening, being very careful that we don't damage anything. And we're just pushing and pulling just to get it through here. This is always the most stressful part, I think. My lining's okay, almost there. Perfect. Okay. So now it's just a matter of pushing out the corners nicely. And on the other side. And this is such a soft faux leather that you don't need a stiletto or something to pull out the corners. It's just does it by itself very nicely. And now it's just a matter of closing up here the lining. So we're pushing out these corners as well. Beautiful. And now we're just pulling on both sides, and it automatically kind of lays into place or falls into place. Just grab these opening, align it. You can press it, but don't have to do that right this second. And you just stitch it just 1/8 of an inch of a seam allowance. And now if you have labels, or you know, you want to put something in here, you can do that. I will put my little label in here. Making sure you're adjusting everything. Here we are. Let me get my little label out. Let's attach it to it. I mean, you could have also put your if you have like a name tag or something, you can put it on the outside. But I just put my little label in here. If I can get it in here. Alrighty, here we are. And again, like 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. That you go to the end and back stitch again, and that should do it. Okay, so we're almost done. And if you do that as a production, where you may have to make more than one, you can first pre-cut everything, and then you know, just do piece by piece. Okay, let's push the lining in. And the good thing is we use the same lining as the outer fabric, so it kind of matches nicely here on the upper side. And all we need to do now is just top stitch. Kind of roll it down with your fingers so your seam allowance is nice. You can also give it a press real quick just to make sure. but it falls nicely into place, as you can see. And then when I top stitch, you can also clip it if need be. When I top stitch, I usually start here in the corners, either before or after. So when I end, it's not visible too much. So let's go and start top stitching here. Make sure that your zipper is out of your way. You're not ending up with having the zipper in your top stitching. And again, you know, here, 3.5, depends on. Make sure that you roll your seam nicely. Snip off the tails. I like to use my little lighter just to kind of seal in. Since I'm using polyester, kind of seals in that. Perfect. And here is our pouch. Just push in the lining. It's beautiful. And that usually goes very fast, very quick. It's a quick sew. And it's beautiful. Well, thank you to be a part of my small tutorial of this cute little bag. And here is the final result. This is that little pouch with the box corners. Very quickly made. The zipper is attached to the lining. It has a lot of storage. It opens up nice and wide. You can find your stuff actually. I always have some issues with that. It's very adorable. Quick sew, especially when you need that one present. And if you like that tutorial, please give me your thumbs up. Otherwise, you can subscribe down below. Also, there's a little bell. If you click that little bell, it will notify you if I have more videos to come, more tutorials to show. You can also leave me a comment in the comment section if you want to see something very specific, like how to veer off a zipper or how to make this angle zipper. There's a couple options that you can do. Some like the one way, some the other. So if you want to see that, I will make a tutorial on this. And I have other little pouches and bags that I can provide you a tutorial with. So thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. And until then, happy sewing. See you soon.